Geraldine Jamieson on Manx Radio.
Hello, and a very warm welcome indeed to this week's programme. Now, I certainly have an absolutely unique guest to introduce to you today. Patrick Mavros has created some of the most extraordinary sculptures in Africa, and indeed a singular environment in which he lives and works. An art silversmithing workshop, the family homestead, the wildlife sanctuary, together with his wonderful sales studio, form a small village on his estate, way up in the wild hills near Harare in Zimbabwe. Well, Patrick exhibits worldwide. Last month he was in the States. In December he will be in London. January, it's Texas, Nevada and New York, and the list just goes on and on. So it's a privilege indeed to welcome Patrick to the Isle of Man, where this weekend he has been exhibiting his exciting collection of contemporary silver sculptures at the International Business School, the Nunnery, here in Douglas. And actually, where you, the public, can go along from 10 o'clock this morning. Just as this programme comes off air, actually, it will be open up the exhibition right through until 4 o'clock this afternoon. Admission is free and you can see for yourselves everything that is on show there, all Patrick's wonderful work, and indeed probably meet Patrick in the flesh himself. But we have him here this morning. Patrick Mavros, a warm welcome to Manx Shores and indeed to Manx Radio.
Thanks very much, Geraldine, and good morning to you. Thank you for your warm welcome. And I must say right in the beginning, it's my treat and my pleasure to be on the Isle of Man. My environment sounds very exciting out there in Africa, living in the bush and the veldt with all the wild animals and the different environment. But for me, the treat is coming to an island in the sea because I come from a landlocked country.
That's right, indeed. Well, I wondered actually, I mean, seeing that you're travelling the world now exhibiting, you know, and going to these exotic places like New York and London, do you usually drop into small islands like ours with your sought-after silver exhibition? Or what is your connection here exactly, Patrick?
If you imagine me as coming from a village in Africa, you'll understand that I feel far more at home on a small island or in a smaller community than I do walking in Manhattan, especially when friends of mine have asked me to come over and be here with you all.
And that, of course, you're referring to Robin and Judy James.
Robin and Judy James invited me to come over with my silver collection. As you know, they have a long history with Africa, and they've been with me in the bush in Africa. And so it's my great pleasure to be over here with them. And I have other African aficionados, Robin and Dandy Bigland, who I'm staying with. So it's very exciting all around for me and my staff.
I must say that for a small island, we have a huge African population here. It's quite extraordinary. I think everybody's just sort of emigrating to the Isle of Man.
I think you Manx folk out here better be careful. These Africans have got a great habit of invading and possessing these days. So watch out for them. It might be the second wave of the Vikings.
Absolutely right. Well, we probably will be very pleased indeed, I'm quite sure, because you've all sort of, the people that are here have all really mixed well, you know, and taken part in every sort of charitable event that goes on here on the island. That's very important.
Thank you.
Now, let's get to the beginning of your career, really, Patrick, and it goes back to your childhood when you were growing up. You were born in Bulawayo. Now, Bulawayo, for those of you that haven't got an atlas open in front of you, that's virtually on the South African border, but it's also on the Botswana border as well. And I can remember myself actually flying in a small single-engined aircraft over the Kalahari Desert to the Okavango Delta, and there is a magical place in Africa if people haven't visited it. It is a tourist place now, but it wasn't when I first went. But you must have had a wonderful time growing up with, of course, in the African bush and the animals. But you didn't exactly go into the silversmithing right away. In fact, you were both a soldier, that was probably national service, and a baker of all things.
Well, I was. I think if we start in the beginning, I'm a fourth generation African, partly from Scots background and the other part from the Greek background. And so we've been in what was originally southern Rhodesia for 4 generations, and a wonderful, colourful history. There has been too. When I was a small boy, I grew up in the bush. My father was a rural doctor. I had 3 sisters, but my friends were local tribes boys, and we spent many, many days in the bush chasing little birds, studying little antelope, etc. And I had a wonderful, wonderful upbringing. Birds of prey were my first love. They're magnificent eagles that surround the area of Bulawayo. Black eagles, crowned eagles, martialed eagles.
The fish eagle.
The fish eagles. They're sparrowhawks, goshawks, falcons. It's just a paradise. And as a small boy, I loved these birds. Climbed to their nests, studied them, etc. And even went to a school called Falcon College. And loved every bit of it. Everything was enthralling for me, and particularly the people of my country as well, with whom I have a great assimilation. And that there was the basis for what would later become my career as a silver sculptor.
Now, you were newly married, and you wanted to give your lovely wife, Katja, an original and personal gift. And this is when you carved your first small piece of jewellery in ivory, a pair of earrings for her. Now, not only, of course, was Katja delighted, but you were inundated then with requests from friends, and I suppose it just all took off.
I think that's true. That's how I got going. I think what's equally important that I was a total failure at school, and I never passed an examination. I always used to say I liked my mathematics examination the most. O-level maths, I liked it so much I wrote it 4 times. But you
were too busy in the outside.
I certainly
in the veldt.
was. I have a lot of patience with children who don't know what they want to do. So if there are children out here on the Isle of Man, and they want to come and speak to me about not knowing what they want to do, I am their huckleberry and their confidant. I never knew what I wanted to do. Not until I was 26 years old. And that's when I carved for my bride, Katja, a pair of ivory earrings, just out of love, really, and a small pair of flowers. She wore them, and as you say, everybody liked them.
Ivory is malleable, isn't it?
Ivory is not malleable. It's very hard. It's pure dentine of an ivory tusk from an elephant. And as you probably were, this is a contentious issue today.
I was just going to, go in hard here, actually. I believe we both know David Shepherd, the British wildlife artist, very well. He's been a guest many times on this programme. And I would have thought he would have had your guts for garters, because it is banned.
David Shepherd is a fellow artist, a wonderful, wonderful human being who's done more for the elephant than anybody else I know, and a man I greatly respect. I think the one point of difference that there is that the elephants of East Africa and Central Africa were thoroughly savaged by evil, money-grabbing poachers. And the difference between that environment and the environment of Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, as it later became known, was that we had an excess of elephants. And unfortunately, they had to be culled to control the population, to ensure their survival and to ensure the survival of other species as well. And Zimbabwe has had a great record in that respect. And as a result, the elephant byproducts of leather, meat, ivory, etc., were regulated, and a person like myself was a registered ivory carver, and that's how I was able to do that.
Because you don't, are you just using the ivory then from dead elephants? Literally, that you don't actually go out, of course, and
no, we must
kill.
be very specific here. There were in Zimbabwe, there haven't been for some time, I'm very happy to say, but there was a policy of population reduction exercise, and that was where we received the byproduct, either ivory or meat or skin, hide from the elephants. But they are not pursued by registered manufacturers such as myself in Zimbabwe. And I'm very, very happy to say that. And I'm also, as I say, very happy to say that there has not been any more culling necessary in the last 5 or 6 years. And this is a very good sign.
Really? That is quite amazing, because, we have to understand that the elephant needs an awful lot of food. And the local farmers have to exist as well.
Yes, there's another thing that's very interesting about the elephant here, and is that it is an animal, it is a beast. We have a large number of them, and they play an important role in a program in Zimbabwe known as Campfire. And this program is actually spread up into East Africa. And Campfire is all about the renewable resource of wildlife product, and to make the rural people aware of the value of their elephants. Many of these elephants are either used in photographic safaris, some are taken on hunting safaris, but the revenue goes back to the people. And the reality of the situation out in Africa is very different to the Northern Hemisphere. And there have been extremely positive results now of rural people taking an active role in the conservation of elephants in particular so that their communities can benefit.
Well, the concept of ecotourism became a catchword of the 90s and allowed, of course, the interplay of commercial business operation on the back, really, of wilderness tracts. Is this what you are about? I mean, you also on your estate have a wildlife sanctuary, don't you, Patrick?
100%. I have a wildlife sanctuary, and this sanctuary is used primarily for Zimbabweans so that they can come and learn about the animals that there are in their country. And many, many small operations like this have opened up over the southern part of Africa in particular with great success.
The arduous task of running a commercial safari lodge operation, I mean, with all its trials and tribulations, because life in the bush is hard. It's very uncompromising. I mean, on the one hand, it's got this complex character, that wonderful African dawn, the tranquility, versus literally a cacophony, a virtual bevy of sounds, sights, and senses, and it's sort of conservation, perhaps, versus man in a way.
It is so. I have in my family, my wife, we also have 4 sons, all of whom are very, very enthusiastic young Africans. So this wildlife sanctuary of mine has played a big and broad part in our country, and we've brought in other people from other areas to come and enjoy and learn from this great orchestra of Africa, all the different animals that we have and the birds. I think that it's very important, once again, that the youth understand the animals. Forget about the old folks. I want the young people in there. I want them to know how to live the bush ways, how to make fires, how to make rope from trees, how to climb up to birds' nests and understand how many eggs they lay. I want them to know what trapping is about. I want them to know what the taste of flesh of game is about, because if they are true Bushmen, true Africans, then that way they will grow to respect what they have.
You know, certainly respect comes into it in capital letters at night, especially with the terrifying sounds of hyena wails and the reverberating roar of the lion. I've experienced it myself.
You remind me of my youngest son, Benjamin. I took him on a safari when he was 5 years old, and we lay in our tents under these mapani trees in the Zambezi Valley near the banks of the Zambezi River, and there was a hyena walking around our camp making that hyena noise. And Ben said to me, "Dad, what's that animal making that noise?" And I said, "It's a hyena, Ben. Just keep quiet." And 5 minutes later, Ben crawled into my bed. And I said, "What's the problem, Ben?" And he said, "Dad, that hyena is bothering me." So that's a great thing. What you say, you're 100% right. I mean, that vision of Africa, the noise. Africa's everything. It invades every sense. Your nostrils, your mouth, your ears. It's just wonderful.
It's a whole big, it's the meaning of adventure, really.
Absolutely.
It's wonderful. You
Yep.
have to go to enjoy it. Now, I'm afraid the clock beating is here, and we must get to your silversmithing. You've adopted, actually, the age-old art of lost wax casting. Perhaps you could elaborate on that for us, Patrick.
That's right. I would make an original. If I want to make a silver elephant, I first of all make an original in wax. And I carve the original elephant in wax just like I would like to see it in silver. I make a mold of it, and from that rubber mold, I produce another wax elephant. Now, the whole idea about lost wax is that you cover the wax with clay all around the wax elephant, and then put that clay ball into an oven. Drill a small little hole in the bottom of the clay ball. In the oven, the clay gets hot, the wax gets hot, the wax melts and drips out through the small hole, leaving in the clay ball the exact hollow shape of that elephant. And right, as soon as that elephant hole is warm enough, we melt silver and pour that into the clay vacuum. and then you end up with a silver elephant. And the reason we made a rubber mold was that we could make another one. You understand? Otherwise, you'd only be able to make one silver elephant at a time.
Why silver? Although, I mean, it's hard to work with silver, isn't it? But yet, on the other hand, it's very, you get a finer end product.
There are many ways that people cast. Some people cast in gold, some people cast in bronze. I've chosen silver because it's traditional. I love the color. I love silver jewelry. And being an African and loving birds in particular, I think that silver game birds like the guinea fowl and the partridges and the francolin and the ducks all look wonderful in silver. Imagine Africa, ebony, mahogany, silver, wonderful, lustrous pieces. And the silver is a byproduct of the gold mining process. Now, don't forget, that old colonial imperial exploiter came out there hundreds of years ago.
You mean our great white hunter?
Our great white hunters and my great-great-grandfathers came out there to rob the continent of gold and ivory and all the other treasures that it had. And silver comes from the gold. It's a byproduct of the gold refining business, an integral part of Africa. I use sterling silver. Now, sterling silver is actually very interesting. It's 92.5% silver, 7.5% copper. And that's the standard that King Henry II set 600 years ago. And he set that so that there would be a regulation which is now accepted all over the world. And sterling, the word sterling comes from Oosterling, because he imported from what is current day Germany, Oosterlings who were great metallurgists, to assay his silver. And that's why we have the word sterling. And all of this assayed silver was marked in the city halls, hence the word hallmark. Right. So you've got an African out there in Africa making sterling silver birds, monkeys, gorillas, and elephants, and having them hallmarked with African hallmarks.
Well, of course, that means that what you buy from you is valuable. It can stand up in an international market. And also, I'm quite sure, one of the reasons that your business now has developed so extensively that your name has become world-renowned. You have a client base of discerning collectors, which include heads of states and indeed royal families.
They do. I've got some funny stories about heads of states and members of various royal families running around in Africa.
Choose one for us.
Well, I couldn't.
You'd be sued, would you?
I'd be sued, I believe. But it certainly has been a very, very interesting journey for me. And I think equally important is that the common man is also my customer. So there are things from £20 to £20,000 that I make. And there's something for everybody. I'm very much an African. I'm very much a communal common man. And I love the world about me.
Yeah, I quite agree with that concept entirely. But when you do have heads of states and royal families buying from you, I mean, they could buy from anybody. So they have evaluated, really, your work, Patrick. That's the seal of a global approval, really. Now, the sad thing is you have not exactly a happy political situation in Zimbabwe. And instead of tourists flocking there, you really, I suppose, have to travel the world with your exhibitions, instead of vice versa, instead of sitting at home quite nicely most months of the year.
The tourists are not flocking into Zimbabwe at the moment, and I hope that we'll see those days again. The African question continues to alarm a lot of people, particularly from the Northern Hemisphere. I must say, in all fairness, my great-grandparents rolled out there on their wagons with Cecil John Rhodes just over 100 years ago. They occupied our country for 87 years before they were toppled. So we've got to get a bit philosophical about this. We're always taught in life, be a sport. If you lose, be a sport. And I'm saying to a lot of people now, if you lose, be a sport.
Isn't Rhodes buried?
Rhodes is buried there, and all is not lost. This is a metamorphosis. We can't only think about ourselves.
Well, how concerned are you? I mean, as you say, you have a lovely wife, 4 sons. You happen to be white. I mean, if we are into the colour of skin, are you not terrified that your farm, you have a farm,
I'm not
will
terrified.
Be the next victim?
I'm not terrified. I might be a victim. But as I said, this is a historical process. My great-grandparents took that land, and it's been taken back now by the people who were there before, and that's actually quite fair enough. And I have also another theory that many people get too fat and too arrogant, and I believe we did. And so there's a new horizon. I look not so much at fear, but as challenge. It's a new horizon, and sometimes if you have pioneer blood in you, you must keep a broad mind. Look at the new situation and see how you can improve yourself in that situation. And if you truly love your country like I do, see what you can do to improve the working relationship with your fellow countrymen.
So there is still a sense then of adventure and this pioneering spirit, exploring new frontiers.
Absolutely within my country as of now. We have a very contentious issue going on. That's the issue of land. And there is still a great demand for new ideas, courage to look at the future, and I am part of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you haven't got a democratic process, though.
We don't have a democratic process, but we're going to get onto a big subject now because I am an African, and I must say that I'm not so sure how some great Western societies call themselves democratic at all times. I think there's some awful things going on in the world today. I think there's a lot of bullying. I think there's not enough understanding of other peoples, their cultures, or their religion. And I'm willing to talk to anybody about that. I've traveled extensively. I have great friends all around the world. And I just find there is not enough respect for other people's cultures.
Absolutely. It's a fault, really, of this excessive materialistic modern age, you could say. But surely there must be the law of the land. There must be, ideally, a people-elected government.
That's true.
That's basic.
The most important thing is there must be law and order. And there's been a lapse of law and order in my country, and I hope that now the situation is improving, and I will certainly do whatever I can to do that. And I hope as well that the government is far more aware of that problem.
Well, is it safe now for people to go to your country
100%.
to actually enjoy the wildlife?
I welcome all the people of the Isle of Man to come to Zimbabwe. It's a great country. We've got wonderful people out there, believe me. I know we've been in the headlines lately, but come out there. You'll be perfectly safe. You'll have the most fantastic safaris. We'll go to Mana pools next to the Zambezi River. Herds of elephants, lion, leopard, fish eagles calling, hippopotamuses, as you have your sundowner on the Zambezi River.
I love the little baby
great
hippos.
Place. Smiling faces, and believe it or not, no racial attitude.
Yeah.
But it's just a wonderful country. We're going through a metamorphosis. Stick with us and come out and meet our people.
Tell us a little bit about the number of items that you've brought with you, you know, at this International Business School, so that we can go along and see today. I mean, I believe that you actually have sculpted from small things like ants to large elephants.
That's
what have you
right.
brought with you to show us?
I've brought a wide variety of creatures: crocodiles, hippopotamuses, giraffes, elephants, lions, leopards, guinea fowls. It's just a wonderful collection, and I want as many young people to come over and see, especially if they're aspiring artists. I want them to come and visit my exhibition, come and talk to me. I'd like to talk to them about my life, about their destiny, etc. It's a very interesting show. It's very relaxed, and one of the things that you'll notice about my work is that I am a prolific artist. Everything I do is produced in Zimbabwe. At my studio. Everything that you see made, there's made within my workshops.
Do you go out and sketch the subject first?
I go out and sketch, draw, film, etc. It's just a wonderful environment for any artist to work in. And I think that one of the impressive things will be the scale of the collection.
Mm-hmm. The scale of it.
Absolutely. We have acacia trees, we have giraffes, we have ostriches.
You make candelabra out of acacia trees.
Candelabra out of acacia trees. There's going to be one tree there with over 4,000 leaves in it, and giraffes reaching up with their long, stretchy tongues to take the tender leaves off the silver tree. It's a very, very... There's silverback gorillas in equatorial palms with candlesticks, big, hairy gorillas. Wonderful thing. Every detail, toenail, under the soles of their feet. I want people to come and look at this and
And
enjoy
the smaller
themselves.
items, like little table place cards
Place
and so
card
on.
holders, yes, I have. I've got 40 different species of place card holders. All the different animals, so that when one sits at a table and you place your guests, you can be very, very undiplomatic. That's what I like. I want you to give the hippopotamus place card holder to the fattest person on the table, and I want you to give the warthog place card holder to your mother-in-law, and just enjoy your meal.
I'll not risk asking what place card you're putting in front of my name, on this
A pretty one.
Fictional
a lovely
table.
leggy ostrich.
Oh, they're quite fierce, aren't they?
Oh, they're gorgeous.
They attack. You keep in touch with people who become devotees of your sculptures, don't you?
Yes, that's a very interesting and serious side of my business. Behind the scenes, I have a team of people in a database, and they who operate a database, and they keep in touch with over 5,000 collectors around the world. And so it's a very big thing that is part of the serious side of me that takes place behind the scenes.
Now, have you got a favourite sculpture yourself? I mean, what adorns your private home?
Ah, that is interesting. Whenever I make a first thing, whether it's good or bad, reject or sound, it goes into my home. And so the home is full of very interesting sculptures, but probably some of the most interesting sculptures are my hippopotamuses. I love hippopotamuses. They're so amoebic and big and flowing and lovely. And every piece of mine that you pick up, and I want you to pick up the pieces, look underneath, because if you look
that's
under
good.
the
You can actually pick up.
I like you to pick them. I look underneath, you're going to find all the feet of the hippopotamuses, all the toenails. I've got tortoises. How do you sex a tortoise? Well, I'll tell you right now. You lift up the male, and underneath his shell, underneath his body, you'll see a concave shell, and underneath the shell of a female tortoise is a flat shell. And the reason a male has a concave is so that when he mates with the female, he stays properly without slipping off. All of these are interesting little facts about the wildlife of Africa.
That's a wonderful note, really, almost to end on. You have very generously, I must say, Patrick, donated several silver sculptures as prizes in a draw that everyone can enter, has been entering, I'm sure, over the weekend, and certainly, of course, can today. Now, this is in aid of the Order of St. John of Jerusalem, right here in the Isle of Man, St. John Ambulance, we probably know it as. And Robin James is going to draw the winning tickets later this Sunday afternoon at the end of the viewing at 4:00. And that'll be marvellous for some lucky winners.
That I'm very happy about that. There's something for everybody. We've got some of my jewelry, which we haven't mentioned, lovely striking jewelry, much of it with great African motifs. And I look forward to that draw when some serious sculpture is going to be won by somebody. I want to be there to teach them how to clean it.
Right. Do tell us quickly, is there a special method in cleaning?
Enjoy cleaning silver. It's as simple as that. Silver foam, warm water, and a dry towel. And enjoy it, because one thing, it's going to become like a beautiful woman. It'll get more and more lovely with age.
It'll never fade in the sunlight either.
Won't fade in the sunlight, and it won't break.
Well, that is absolutely tremendous. Patrick Mavros, it's been fascinating meeting you and a great pleasure to have you join me on the Geraldine Jamieson interview this week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Geraldine.
Now, everybody, remember, go along now to the International Business School, the Nunnery in Douglas, this morning and this afternoon. It's open as this programme finishes right now from 10 o'clock right through to 4 o'clock this afternoon, and admission is free. And my guest, Patrick Mavros, will be there to greet you.